S or A rank units. I'm sorry, kits. If I'm just used to building kits. But
Hmm.
the last few mobile suits, it's always like one alternative. Alt one is basically a range unit, while alt two is always the melee spec unit with a
Hmm.
little bit of range or maybe something to throw at, like a boomerang or a bit, like you saw right there.
Hmm.
And considering the Double O Quanta, I know I've seen the Double O Quanta in action, the first one when it came out, but I can't get a feel out of this one.
We both agreed that Double O Quanta, the regular S rank, it shouldn't have surpassed Double O Riser because Double O Riser is the most powerful unit in the game, arguably.
Right.
Um, and we both agreed that because of its limited cannon, that's CANON with one N there, its limited cannon appearance and function, it genuinely would have been difficult for Softmax to come up with something that could rival or even surpass Double O Riser. So they were fairly. As a matter of fact, this sword doesn't exist in the movie. It exists as a model. It exists in the behind the scenes MSV kind of material, but you never
Right.
see it in the movie. So this is something that Softmax they added because yes, it was in the model kit, but no, it was not in. It did not appear in the OVA.
I have to say, I have to admit, I remember when I built the model, and okay, I can understand the side shield and the remote weaponry that can either turn into this massive GN cannon, massive GN sword. But even before watching the movie, I wasn't impressed with the design. It was like we just thought of this. What do you think? I mean, the only mobile suits that came out of that movie that were beyond, better was the Harut, the Raphael, and the other one, which I just
Zabanya.
Zabanya. Yes, those were the only three that I loved. Even though I don't like the model kits, I thought the overall design was great.
Mm-hmm.
But what was Double O Quanta? What, why?
I'll be honest. I think a lot of people felt the same way about Wing Zero Custom when it made its appearance in Endless Waltz. A lot of people complained about it that it didn't really. Now we know, and they knew early in was it 97, 96 when the OVA came out that this is what they would have looked like if the TV series versions had been upgraded. So you were supposed to take them as they look different. Everybody accepts them in canon as the same mobile suit.
Right.
There is no transition. Um, Wing Zero Custom is kind of the only one where it's the only one of the wing units where I kind of give it a pass. It doesn't make sense to have feathers on a space mobile suit. It doesn't make sense to have those massive beam cannons, which, by the way, you can't hide him anywhere. Where's he hanging on to when he's doing all the flying and the melee and the parry and the thrust and all
Ah,
that stuff? Where do they go?
they go on the
So,
backpack.
yeah, what backpack? That is the backpack.
Oh, yeah.
So, um, or maybe they attach to the hips. But much like Wing Zero Custom, I give it a pass just because it looks elegant or it looks kind of neat.
Mhm.
My preference is I just kind of gloss it over, and it looks neat, and to me that's kind of enough. It's Prime and I kind of said it's like they couldn't make like Celestial Being couldn't afford to make something as elaborate as Double O Riser a second time. Like even though technically the GN drives on Quanta are more advanced, they're more compact and more powerful, like cell phones if you must. Um, we were under the impression they were trying to be a little more minimalist with the design, trying to make it a little more kind of like the love for Exia kind of spilled over into the movie, and so you got something that was not Double O Riser. It was more or I should say, it was more Exia than it was Double O Quant, or than it was Double O Riser. So it didn't have the huge backpack that had to compensate. That gave it a lot of flair. Just visual flair.
Yeah. I
Double O
mean,
Quant.
it's basically like it's a flower that's ready to bloom, as my
Yeah,
to
yeah. Because I mean,
paraphrase it really well.
yeah. Because once
Because
once you
you
get
had
those scissor bits involved, then it really blossoms and it becomes hell on wheels kind of thing.
I think that's like the overall path of a Gundam animated series. Make a standard unit and then just put attachments and make it and then OP it at the end of the series.
Oh, sure. I mean, they've been doing that since Zeta Gundam
Right.
because I mean Zeta was actually this what carried the name of the series, but it wasn't seen until at least halfway through.
Right. Right.
So I mean they've been doing that since, and then just to up the ante, they moved to Double Zeta. It had three different parts. Why do they need to combine? I don't know. It looks cool.
Hmm.
Why does it have a huge cannon on its forehead? I don't know. It looks cool.
I kind of
1980s
like
anime. So
I kind of like that cannon on the forehead
yeah, I like it too.
because I remember playing the the Dynasty Warriors Gundam 1, 2, and 3, and I have to say I kind of like firing that massive head cannon during the missions and whatnot.
Oh sure.
It just takes up the entire screen. You don't normally see this in this game. Yes, you do. When you're SPing, but and, but
Sure.
yeah, I actually love that mobile suit. When I
Hmm.
first saw that, when was that? It had to be like in the mid '90s, and I got the first 1/100 scale kit before Master Grade. It was pretty bad, of course, but I loved it.
Yeah. And I think one of the examples of, or some of the examples where, excuse me, the protagonist, where the protagonist of the series doesn't have the same or doesn't transition to a more powerful mobile suit later on.
Right.
I think the first example of that was Turn A,
Hmm.
and then after that maybe Unicorn, I think. But the Unicorn, of course, gets upgraded over time. So it becomes a little more elaborate in its gimmick, or it has the same gimmick. It's just it gets more accessories over time. So
I would have loved to
yeah,
see. Obviously, this is the Are we recording, by the way?
yeah,
Okay.
just in case.
I know. I would have loved to seen how. I mean, clearly, if things would have turned out well, and we would have gotten another year. I would have loved to seen more of the build fighters units come out in the series, as well as dare we say, Recognitia.
Considering how many packs that thing has,
I don't
they
think the facts would have mattered because again, they always try. If we would have done this by rank,
mm,
G Self would have been a standard A rank.
well, I gotta ask about that because uh, Launcher Strike and Sword Strike, they're both AS, are they right? Yeah, they're both
Yep.
AS.
Right.
The standard Strike Gundam is A rank. On the other hand, you've got the Wing Gundam units. The only one I've got actually is this. It's B rank. Um, Go away. I hate that thing. Is the B rank Wing. But then, backtracking a little further than that, you've got the original Gundam, which is B rank. You've got,
In A rank, you're looking at
yeah,
the magnetic coating. You're looking at.
well,
Okay.
it's mag coating, but yeah, it's the regular original Gundam, no gimmick, whatever, is B rank.
Right.
Actually, mag coating is the only A rank version of it. So, yeah. Um, I've got them sitting in the back of my hangar. I could pull it out if I had to. Let's see. No, I went the wrong way. Here they are. Here's some of them. Hyper Hammer, Twin Bazooka. I've got some others. But for the G selfie, it would be interesting. Why does it automatically have to be an A rank? Just because Impulse was an A rank? Just because Strike was an A rank? Um, Turn A is an S rank. I mean, there is no lower version, obviously. The Zeta was an A rank. Both of the enhanced, or both of the double Zetas were A ranks. Um, I'm wondering instead if, and it's kind of a joke by Softmax. What they could have done was start with the G selfie as a B rank. Oh great, now I'm saying it the way Prime does. They would started out with the G self
Just say,
as a
just
B
say G
rank.
selfie. Just say G selfie.
Yeah, is
Everybody.
yeah, everybody's. Um, and then the upgrades would be B ranks, or they would be ranks, or they could be all A ranks. It would be difficult. I don't think the G. Yeah, in fact, I know G Selfie doesn't get an
Well,
upgrade at any point. It's just that one.
well,
It's
hold
just
on. G Selfie had like four versions, five versions. We have normal version. We had
the
those
tricky packs,
the tricky pack, the atmospheric pack, the torque pack,
assault pack.
the assault pack, and the last version that could have been an S. The assault pack could have been easily right there an S rank, while the last one would have the next one would have been an SS rank.
I think I think if they maybe sacrificed one weapon, because I mean, let's be honest, they used assault pack only once. I think assault pack a case could be made where it was an A rank that could transform. Excuse me. Excuse me.
That's okay.
No, it
Like
would like Chaos Gundam. It would transform into have a single weapon, and then in the other mode it would have, three weapons, or you could have it in a case where it's two weapons in one mode, two weapons in the other
well,
mode.
no, because the assault pack of the G Self has four has like four beam cannons. The two pods in the sides are more are missiles, missile
Sure.
spans right there. So in Alt One, it could have been missiles and a rifle. I mean, the alternative would have been in the normal rifle mode, or the two hand pylons, which holds the beam cannons, and then the missile.
Mhm.
And then alternate mode would have been the over the shoulder one, and then more different type of missile system.
That's
Because
possible.
actually, because if I'm not mistaken, there should be like two different types of missiles, like heavy and light.
Well, in SDGO, it would have been homing missile and dumbfire. And that's what. Oh, okay. They would have had like a missile mode. There would have been a missile mode. Then you would have because, believe it or not, Strike Freedom, or I'm sorry, Freedom Meteor, and also Strike Freedom Meteor. These two cannons out of the hands are one weapon, and then the two cannons on the outside of the pack or outside of the meteor. If you look in the top left corner here, those are a
Right.
separate weapon. I think an arrangement with the assault pack on the G Selfie could have been done like this.
That could be right there.
So I mean, if there was a wide variety of weapons on here, and we're talking like Strike Freedom Meteor, if you look at that thing, no two weapons really come out of the same location on here. Each one of these kind of comes from a different location.
Right.
But there's no way. I don't think anybody would have accepted the assault pack as an SS or an SR or even S. It could have been, but the problem with doing the assault pack as an S rank is then you have was it the perfect pack, which basically does everything that all the others can do. Why, I don't know. That would have been the S rank, probably the only S rank. But I'm just under the impression that the G Selfie could have been a B rank line of Gundams, and then maybe the perfect G Selfie perfect pack would have been the sole S rank. Because if that was the case, you would have a ton of tricky packs and assault packs and high torque packs or whatever it is. They all would have been A ranks and S ranks.
The high torque um, would have been a Titus version, basically.
Well,
All
yeah,
melee.
sure.
That would have been all melee, and it would benefit with some sort of speed boost.
But my point is that all of those packs, all those variants would probably be the same rank as the basic G Selfie. So you would have AS and AR and AS and AR and maybe some just plain old A ranks. Probably not. They would all have to be variants like this. And the G Selfie alone, with no backpack or anything like that, would have been just an A rank. Um, but
Then
and then the perfect pack, and then the argument can be set up where the perfect pack becomes the sole S rank.
yeah, that would have been an interesting take on this if they would have proceeded. Another thing, even though we already seen the build, the build strike, the Camp for Amazing, um, we never, of course, got second season units from Build Fighters. We never got, of course, the Build
Yeah,
Burning. We never
I'm
got Star winning would have been the that would have been that would have been the winning Gundam SD would have been perfect
Oh, sure.
in this game. This
Yeah,
it would have been a fan favorite.
I agree.
It wouldn't have the features of it turning into specific weaponry to attach to or give to the lightning and the build burning. But regardless, it still will have some unique features. It will probably have like maybe its attack mode is like out of nowhere the lightning comes out and attaches it to its attaches parts to its beam cannon and hit the target. The lightning would have been great too. It would have been a welcome addition in this system in this game.
Hmm. I think the Lightning would have been a pretty simple build. You would have had the mobile armor mode, or the Wave Rider mode would have had like some missiles on it, and then the mobile suit mode would have had beam sabers, beam rifle, sniper cannon. That's probably how it would have played out. So it would have been a fairly simple. But that's actually not too dissimilar to the Chaos Gundam, with the
And
exception of the
then
remotes and the homing missiles.
and considering that the bill burning, since it's all pure melee, I wondered like if it OP'd, not OP'd, excuse me, when it did a spec attack, it could have been a ranged spec attack where it actually throws its fits at the target from range, and then you remember that scene where that massive phoenix bird comes out of nowhere and just burns the target.
Well, you're talking about the upgraded version. Was that called
The
the Bill
upgrade,
Birding? Yeah.
yeah, it's still Bill Burning, yeah.
No, no, it was
Bill Burning try.
yeah, something like that, or try burning or something like
Try
that.
burning, I think so. Yeah, so okay, so yeah, because it never had melee either way, so
I think the winning Gundam that could have been. I think that would have been like a. It would have been treated like a purge. Like once you transformed, you couldn't transform it back. I think they could have treated it like that. So it would start out in SD mode, and blah blah blah, and you play around with it. But if you hit the transform button, and you could only do it once you transformed, it would go into what was it, high stance mode or whatever they called it, and it
I
would
get
stay. Yeah, huh?
in the high grade mode.
Yeah, the hybrid mode. And once it reached that mode, or once you transformed it to that mode, it would stay that way until it was destroyed and you had to respawn. So it
You
would have
could
been a
have
choice.
They could have done it the same way they did with when they were doing the events a few months ago, where what was that? When they did the Alex Kempfer unit, where like you could either play as Alex, or you can transform and turn into Kempfer. They could have easily done the same
Oh,
with the
oh,
winning with the star winning.
oh! You're talking about a dual ignition. I didn't even.
Like
Well, yeah. That's. Let's see,
that
where
would
is
have
it?
been great
Dual
as a dual
ignition.
ignition.
Yeah, it would have been that. Now that you mention it, that's right. That's actually exactly what it is. You could actually flip back and forth between the modes.
There you go.
It was either flip back and forth between the modes, or it would have been a one. Because I hesitate to call the star winning a. I don't want it to Well, I don't want it to be a multi-mode unit where you could necessarily flip back and forth, but I also don't want it to be a skill changer. Once you reach a certain HP, boom, it transforms automatically. I don't want it to do that. I want it to be a choice
Yeah,
of when it
it's
changes.
that's the one thing that I did not like. You by you saying that, and that would have been great. I would never like that skill changer option because ever since they released the Unicorn Gundam final mode, the one that with all the green cycle frame, yeah, that one right there,
Awakened.
Awakened version. Thank you. I didn't like it because once you transform, you cannot go back until you die.
Well,
That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
not necessarily because, I mean, and spoiler alert, you and I have both seen it, but in the OVA, is an OVA? Yes. In the OVA, the reason it becomes pure melee is because the Neo Zeong destroyed all the ammunition on it, or rather, it used up all of the ammunition. And I mean, look what happened to Banshee.
Yeah, but this is a game. Who cares about
Well,
OVA?
well, Banshee Norn is a skill changer too. Now, there isn't a Banshee Norn Awakened version. We didn't get that, unfortunately. I
That
think a
would have
lot of
been
people
great.
like we got Banshee Norn, but we didn't get the Awakened version because like how would you explain the missing leg? You know, that'd be kind of weird.
That would be funny if
It
in
would,
the
yeah,
game you transform and he's missing a leg. He'll be flying around a bit, but hey, your leg is
sure,
missing.
yeah, yeah. But it didn't continuity wise. It didn't bother me that this is a purging unit because it makes sense. He also, if I remember correctly, at this point he wasn't using his melee anymore. He was starting to use the shield funnels,
Hmm.
even though technically they're not funnels, but telekinesis on a mobile suit, I guess. So I mean, once it transforms, that doesn't bother me in SDGO. It bothers me that such a powerful mobile suit, or I'm sorry, that such a powerful unit in SDGO is a purge to a pure melee. Like that bothers me, and I do wish I could flip it back and forth at will.
That's what I didn't
And
like it.
well, I mean, and then that argument could also be applied to the go back to it. Come on, thank you. The crossbone full cloth skull heart.
I never got that one.
Yeah, and I never use it. I got it at level 7, and it sits at level 7. I'm probably never going to use it again or whatever. I can't
Well,
stand the fact that it purges to pure melee. That just bugs the hell of me, and
yeah, that
that's the
one.
main reason I don't use it. Is because like it doesn't bother me that it's got a pure melee mode. It's got good weapons here. It has good weapons here. I just don't like the fact that it's a purge. And I haven't read Crossbone. I haven't read Crossbone Gundam, so I can't say whether or not it's a purge. Like all his armor gets damaged and then he purges. I'm pretty certain that no conscientious pilot in the Universal Century is going to cast off all his ranged weapons just so he can punch a lot. That that doesn't make sense to me, and I'm pretty certain it doesn't make sense to anybody. I mean, what's off the top of my head, the heaviest melee oriented mobile suits were probably in the 1 Year War. The Goof and not the Dom. Oh, there was the Goof
Got
and there
the
was
got the go.
Zagok.
There's a gog, the gog with those long nails.
Oh, sure, yeah. But beyond that, like melee combat in Universal Century was uncommon. Like, I mean, Char and Amuro, their final battle, yeah, they used beam sabers. They also did a crap ton of shooting at each other. A lot of shooting. The swords in the Universal Century are reserve. They're not. I mean, they're not used nearly to the degree that like Axia uses it, where it's pretty much nothing but swords. I mean, that's
Right.
the gimmick of Axia. It's very melee oriented. In Universal Century, you get shot up long before you can get to the in melee range. So, yeah, why did I bring that up? I don't. Oh, what's this? That can go away. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't it bothers me from a tactical perspective, and keep in mind, folks, there's not a lot of tactics that go into SDGO. You either do it or you don't, and you don't think about it. You just kind of swing and hope you hit stuff, and if you do it enough times, oh, you're pro. Um, so tactically, it doesn't make a lot of sense for this to have a purge in it, but in terms of OP and balance and game mechanic, I can understand why they made the choice to make this purge. Banshee Awakened would have been the same thing. Star Winning would have been the same thing.
You
That's
know
the
that that's a good
good.
question now because now I remembered when we all started playing this game a few years ago. Before that major update where they turn, we all remembered rock, paper, scissors.
G Generation you're talking about. That was for reference. That was summer 2013.
Right. And we remembered all the points that we had to put in, all that level protectors, just
Mm-hmm.
so we can upgrade it. And then sometimes it would work, sometimes it would not.
Over customs.
Oh God, I remember that. And then all of a sudden we had that major update in like you said, 2013, and it was all for naught.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the like as frustrating as it was something to look forward to. It was something to work towards. It was a goal. And once you
Hmm.
got the EX, you kept using those units. Like believe it, like the notion I remember hearing this was years ago that some person had made the observation that it was sad to see that people who get their units to EX, they never use those EX units
It's
ever
like
again.
again, right? I think
That's what they said, and to me, well, for me, it was not true at all. To me, EX is a badge of pride. It's a badge of accomplishment, and if you don't use it, it's a damn shame. I think the last time I used a Zagok was actually it was last week. I used it in an AI match with a couple of other Okamis, and I didn't score very much in terms of kills, but I got a lot of damage out, and it's still fun. Zagok, CU rank Zagok, despite the fact that it's a C rank, and C ranks technically are irrelevant when it comes to A ranks and S ranks, like G generation changed that as well. Um, it's still fun to use. The weapon setups on it, the reloads, the mobility on it, and if you ignore the custom parts I've put onto it, you can freeze frame that all you want to. Despite that, this is still a fun unit to use, and it's at EX. Now, granted, I EX'd it before G generation. Another unit, this one I actually haven't used in quite some time, just because I used it so much, I had to give it a break or something. So fair enough. I got this to EX after, what, 7 or 8 tries, or maybe it was 12 tries or something like that. I finally got it, and I'm like, yes! And that was something to look forward to, but also, and it's actually tied into custom parts, the problem with EX nowadays, aside from the fact that, A, you can't EX any time of the week that you want to, you have to wait for a quote-unquote event. And OG Planet, doggone it, they never did those EX events like they said that. Well, they did. It was just very few and far between, and it was usually for people who paid the most amount of money, which was bullshit. It was a way to milk money out of people. But the problem with EXing nowadays, and I'll actually go into the factory to oh, we're still in the room here. The problem with EX is the bonuses that you get out of EX don't matter anymore.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
this is the
that's
thing.
what.
And this is the thing I've been fighting in my head. I've been fighting this since. Yeah, I've been fighting it since 2013. Is these percentages are so tiny. 15% is at the highest number of anything that you're going to see in any of these, and it doesn't matter which one of these trees you look at. 15% is it. There's 10 points. There's 15 points. There's 1,000. I mean, what does 1,000 mean? Is that the range? Is that how much damage you're going to be inducing? I mean, that makes no sense. When you get to something like this, 2 points of additional attack, 3% dash booster reduction, jump booster reduction, 3%. That is negligible.
You can't even understand what the damage type is per weapon.
Yeah,
That's another thing that I never
yeah.
liked about this game. Is, I mean, everything else I like, but it's like when you try to figure out what damage potential you want to put your unit on. Do you want your unit to have minimal damage, but you want it to be very fast, or do you want to like have it super powerfully destroy a unit, but you're pretty much stationary? You don't see that measure right there. I think that was on the previous, before the update.
Okay, here's something you have to realize about the difference between servers at this point is what this part is. You see down here in this corner here,
Yeah.
these are the numbers. And each of these numbers is unique according to whichever unit you're piloting. And of course those numbers change also when you transform the unit. But A, there's no gauge on here. Like it's at, just for argument's sake, this is at 70% damage, and then when I transform it goes up to 75%. There are no numbers in here. You just have to, oh, well, it's higher than it was previously. Now, OG Planet didn't do this. The unofficial SDGO wiki didn't do this. But in China's wiki, official, by the way, Softmax ran the wikis. The publishers in all the Asian countries ran their respective wikis. We had to there was a fan-based wiki, and that's what we had to depend on. But anyways, the developer focus, or I'm sorry, the developer-supported wikis over in Asia, and there were, 5 or 6 of them, however many, depending on your language. All of those came with, what were they called? They came with numbers. They had grids. They had percentages. They had beam rifle in a single volley does this much damage guaranteed every single time. And there's actually a range of values. Like it'll do 2,100 points for a single shot, and then it might do 2,200 points in the next shot, just to kind of mix things up a little bit. Believe it or not, the values of damage actually bounce up and down a little bit according to the programming that Softmax has in the game. But in the English, in the North America server and the English-speaking players, we never had those numbers. We had to do guess and check the whole time. And the only way we could get confirmation of those numbers was to go over to the foreign language wikis and look up those numbers, and then, oh, okay, now it makes sense. Then you could plan out your strategies. Then you knew all I could do is say, it's common beam rifle damage on this weapon, or it's common melee damage on this weapon. But I have no idea. All these reviews I've said, I have no idea what the numbers are, because I'd have to go speak Mandarin Chinese, I'd have to go speak Japanese, I'd have to speak Korean, and I can't do it. So that's a big factor. Getting back to your question of percentages and stuff here, that's a big factor in why it was so difficult to make these things work, is because we didn't have access to that kind of information. But at the same time, as I was starting to say, in Strider, you've heard this ad nauseum from me over the last 2 years now, but I'll say it for the sake of recording, these numbers are so small. Long-range reload rate by 5%. Dash booster reduction by 10%. You barely notice that in the heat of battle. If you need to reload now, you need to reload now. And this is a game, if it's a Twitch gaming environment, you expect the response to be as fast as possible. You expect that reload rate to pop up sooner. When Custom Parts 1.0 came out with G Generation in summer 2013, it was a substitution system. And you also heard me bitch and moan about this, too. I was actually depressed, because it was basically, you want to increase your medium range or your long range reload rate by 5%, you're going to have to sacrifice agility by 10%. You're going to have to sacrifice your boost duration by 10%. You're going to have to sacrifice your armor density by 10%. So you're going to reload a little, or your weapon will reload a little faster, and only 5 or 10% faster. But look at what you have to sacrifice in order to do it. The deficits that I was building up in trying to customize these things with those first custom parts were really frustrating. It got to the point where I wasn't customizing. Period. I just refused to do it because they were so frustrating. And then they came up with this 2.0 version. I guess this is the 2.0 version. And these numbers, 500 points is one beam rifle shot, believe it or not. Because the average beam rifle is like 1,200, 1,000, something like that. It's 1,000. So basically, this unit HP up only lets you survive, only gives you one beam rifle, common beam rifle, like on a B rank or an A rank. That's all that it gives you. That's all the increased resistance you get. This shield, or this increased defense, probably reflects one or two beam. It only gives you one or two beam rifle shots difference between living and not living. This is 15%. That's not a whole heck of a lot. It's really not. And so EXing for me became pointless. And nothing even, like, it might have been a badge of, It actually became more competitive at that point. I got it to EX, so I get to use it and you don't. It became a point of competition rather than, whoa, congratulations, you did it. Oh, man, I wish I could get up to that level, but I will soon. I promise I will soon. And you had to work at it, and, sooner or later you would get to it. But when G Generation, or when custom parts came out, and when EX became an event as opposed to EXing, the reason, as I understand it, they removed the EX ability, from every single week or whatever it is, because people were getting frustrated at seeing so many common players. They were EXing, 3 and 4 units a day. And others were getting really frustrated, like, what the hell? Why isn't this happening? And so Softmax went into panic mode, and they said, okay, fine. Nobody can EX, but you can all do it at the same time. And you can only do it when you accomplish certain things first on that during that particular event, and that's it.
Hmm.
It restricted it. It took the fun out of it. And then these custom parts, such as they are now, the numbers are so tiny. Well, damn, there's no point to it. This long range 5% reload rate. I remember prominent YouTuber, prominent SDGO Korea player, Smiley T1, who's considered one of the best in the game ever. He did what's it called, a visual reference guide when custom parts came out, and he basically said he just did the text and he said this is a non-upgraded version, this is an upgraded version, and he did a side-by-side split screen of, for example, it was the original Gundam.
I think you actually sent that to us.
Right,
Video file.
right, and you can still look it up on YouTube if you look up Smiley T1, and it basically showed the B rank Gundam would fire its beam rifle and how quickly it would shoot, and then he shows it with upgraded attack speed or attack rate and cooldown, and so lo and behold, it actually fires a little faster. But it's so marginal, so tiny that he had to empty the clip on both of them for you to actually see the difference that it made. The numbers are so small, it doesn't matter. It's actually really it's at the point. Despite the fact for the reviews that I make, these numbers and all these things I do on here, the recommendations I make, that reload rate's going to do nothing for you. I hate to spoil it for you. That 9 points of defense is going to do nothing for you. You're going to survive one extra beam rifle shot there. You're going to go one, maybe 2 units length worth of additional boost duration, and that's not enough. These numbers say so much about who Softmax is appealing to. These numbers are so small, they're so negligible, they're so marginal that really you're not changing anything. It's to prevent people from making the most powerful unit they possibly can and dominating the battlefield. That's why these numbers are so small. You're
That's
just
pretty. That's
yeah.
pretty much the essence of a video game these days. You want to have the most powerful unit, and yeah, I know. I mean, what they're doing, what they did had some sort of unusual logic that, in one point of view, sounded great on paper, maybe even in practice, but then it changed the mentality of the player. It
hmm
changed the desire of the player to continue on. I mean, even I stopped playing. I was like, okay, what's the point? What was the point?
I'll be honest. These last, I mean, and this is before the announcement of Korea shutting down, and then after that, the shutdown of North America. These last 4 or 5 months, I've actually started to get it in my head that I was going to walk away from the game because Strider, I love SD Gundam. Not SD Gundam Capsule Fighter Online. I love SD Gundam. I love these little mobile suits, these squat, humorous
Of
little
course.
me all over
Yeah,
the place.
I agree.
And I also love that I get to take my favorite mobile suits. For example, Dynamit's Full Shield. Well, it's called Jan Full. Yeah, Dynamit's Full Shield. I get to take one of my favorite mobile suits, and I get to use it as I see fit. I get to be a sniper. I get to engage those targets at long range. Or I can just go absolutely insane with the homing missiles and the beam machine guns and the crashing into people. Or I can be a battlefield dominator and just shrug off everything that I've just thrown out there. And I just kind of, like, literally excuse me, that thing. Literally, the Destroy Strumfaust.
I actually like that one. That was
The
one of my favorite units.
Yeah, the melee here. I don't know why it's called Beam Fangs though. That makes no sense. Because look, Beam Fangs. That makes no
Well,
sense.
remember, I think that's the mode where you can launch them.
No, no, that's what the Strumfaust is. Those are the remote version. We're talking mobile suit mode. This is weapon one
Oh,
melee.
that's right. It was melee.
Yeah. So.
But pretty much
Oh,
two hits you can destroy a
no.
C, right?
Well, yeah. Here's the funny thing. On the SS version here, this weapon right here, it's literally she reaches back with her right hand and slaps the unit.
Mm.
Literally, just slaps. It's a bitch slap, literally. Which, that's great. And then it had this tremendous beam shield on the front. It took entire squadrons to defeat the Destroy Gundam. Just one. Now, granted, it became a little underwhelming as the series progressed. That's just bad writing or whatever you will. But I want to be able to take these giant mobile armors into the battlefield and just wreck shit with them. And I want the entire team pointed at me. I want that to happen. And I don't want to do one-hit kills. Fair enough. Although, beam cannons, there wasn't much reason for. Okay, that gets into game mechanics. But I want these big mobile armors to be threatening. And G Generation killed that. They all in the name of balance, because the Call of Duty players, the Battlefield players, came in and said, "Why? I don't understand these big units. Why are they so big? They're like tanks. I want these big things, these monster mobile suit things. I want them to be like the little ones. That's what I want." And so Softmax, in my opinion, made the huge mistake of listening to that little crowd of whatever you want to call them.
Liberals.
The I would careful. I don't want to offend my audience, Strider.
Sorry.
Or I don't want to offend half my audience, I'll say. They listened to those players that were very small, a vocal minority, and just rebalanced the game to the point they basically nerfed mobile armors into non-existence. This thing is a shadow of what it was previously. You want to talk about shadows of what they were? Let's talk about the Psycho Gundam.
I remember you talked about that.
Arguably the tankiest unit in the game. I think maybe Big Zam would have been the second most. And they had the physical mass to do it. They tower over everything, and for good reason. The weapons on Big Zam, yeah, okay, whatever. But Psycho Gundam had tremendous defense built into it. Basically, you wanted people to shoot you, and then you could just stand there. You could stand still and not fire a shot for about 2 minutes. That's how powerful this thing was. To the Call of Duty crowd, you know what? Mobile armors are not easy to beat. You can't shoot them down with one beam shot to the head. That's not how they work. And if you have an issue with it, take it up with, is it Yoshiyuki Tamino? The guy who created Gundam. Because he came up with the mobile armor, notion. He came with the big boss.
Pretty much the first season of Gundam had a lot of mobile armors.
Yeah, and a lot of them were actually experimental. It got to the point where you could attach a mobile suit to a mobile armor. When you did that, you ended up with something like the Dendrobian Orchid. That was, I think, one of the
unit.
Yeah, that was one of the first examples of a mobile suit attached to a mobile armor. But G Generation basically killed that. And, they faded into obscurity. Breakable beam shields, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, whatever. So yeah, I mean, I thought Paper, Rock, Scissors kept balance in the game. It really did.
That I agree.
I didn't like some of the choices that they had for which units went into which category. Heavy Arms Custom, for example, is classified as a long-range combat unit, despite the fact
That was one of my.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my when I got that unit before the 2013. When I got that unit, that dominated my gameplay a lot.
Oh yeah, it was one of my favorites.
Oh God, I loved it. I had so many good matches with that unit, and then all of a sudden, it's like, why bother?
Yeah, I actually heard people complain it's a boring mobile suit because it has so many guns on it. You know what? Look at the mobile suit and tell me it doesn't have enough guns on it. I mean, really. You've got guns here, you've got guns here. There's actually 3 kinds of ballistic weapons on here that aren't even represented in SDGO. And it's got like 3 different kinds of homing missiles. It's just got the 1 volley right there, or 2 volleys, and that's it. And I actually used this in an AI match the other day, and you could actually feel the reduction in damage. And it's tragic. It's tragic, I tell you. Oh, the whole point, hang on, the whole reason for me bringing up Heavy Arms Custom, it's a long-range combat type, and yet none of these weapons fire over the horizon. None of them fire beyond visual range. It's all M's. Go ahead.
Yeah, but even at that range, you could pretty much. Again, you could have shredded a unit in like by 70%.
Yeah, but and I remember when, as SoftMax was explaining this transition from paper rock scissors into close medium long range, they said don't think of it in terms of what kind of mobile suit you're going to be throwing out there. We want you to think about the range of the weapons. And I remember reading a press release about that. They said think about the range of the weapons now. Don't think about the kind of mobile suit. Well, the problem is they never finished the job. This, the reason I insist on using the terms paper, rock, scissors to this day, and you can see here long range combat, close range combat, the reason I insist on using the phrases paper, rock, scissors is because I firmly believe paper, rock, scissors never left.
No.
It never left. And that was SoftMax's mistake. These should have been reclassified. Every single unit should have had, whether it had really high boost duration, whether it had really low boost duration. Every single unit should have been rebalanced. Every single one of them. Instead, what they did is they unbalanced it in one big way, actually. Not only did they absolutely neuter the big units, make them irrelevant. Well, except for the seed, except for the meteors, they're okay, whatever. Aside from the fact they absolutely neutered the big units, the other thing they unbalanced is melee close range combat dominates now. They unbalanced the game. It used to be rocks were defeated by long range combat units, and it would actually hurt. There were actually formulas and numbers that they would use for those calculations, and they would, a paper may not necessarily win the fight, but it'll hurt a hell of a lot before that melee can be used on a paper. Scissors will tear up the papers as they're trying to chase them around. There was this very nice cyclic process, and when they when they removed paper, rock, scissors, they destroyed that. The thing about a rock player, a melee player, thinking before he charges in, ooh, this guy's going to hurt me a bit. Even if I do manage to destroy him with my sword, he's going to hurt my armor a lot, so I might not want to engage him until a little later on. And I can't shoot him because I'm at a numerical disadvantage. Right. When they removed that numerical disadvantage, and this is paper, rock, scissors, the melee players, the other thing they did, all rocks, all former rocks, each and every one of them got an increase in HP and defense.
Right.
And that was basically open season for the melee players. The people who liked using rocks, nothing held them back. And for 2 years now, melee and dumbfire, I don't have much dumbfire in my hanger here, and swords and dumbfire have come to dominate the game. So much so that it's driven people away. That coupled with the inability, and that coupled with the fact that you can't bring these numbers back up to where they used to be. You cannot use a paper which already had a terrible boost duration. That was something that I have always pitched about. You couldn't change the boost duration on a paper or a long-range combat unit to be able to compensate for the fact that rocks would boost for a longer amount of time. I would want to use this as kind of, oh crap, there's a melee unit coming towards me. Well, I can't get away from him because he has a longer boost duration than I do. So right. Basically every single time, no matter what. And when that numerical advantage that a paper had over a rock, when that disappeared, it didn't matter. Papers and scissors basically blurred, the lines between them blurred, and the rocks dominated. So there is very much a reason why Double O Riser is the most powerful unit in the game. And there's a reason why it's been nerfed 7 times. It's because the agility and everything that makes a rock, it was basically a perfect rock. Same thing could be said of XCS7 swords. They're rocks. What's the most powerful paper? Oh, I would be hard-pressed. CeraVe? No, I wouldn't say CeraVe. I might say something like Wing Zero Custom.
I was going to say Raphael.
Arguably. Raphael had a lot of issues with it. It was awkward. It felt nerfed. It's bad because it was nerfed. It's not bad because
also
it was overpowered.
Zabanya. Zabanya was a bro. Either that Well, I never got the Cherudum.
Caradum is very good nowadays. Caradum is actually, where are you? The Caradum Gundam is actually, Caradum Gundam replaced the new heavy weapon system, the new Gundam HWS. It
Oh yeah.
replaced that as the one that you hide behind. So, but that's a different argument. You were going to say something a few minutes ago before I interrupted you about rocks dominating all. I don't know if you can
Well,
remember.
no, because I just remember when we get on those matches, and I think if I saw somebody with a crossbone or some of the other units that's from the Son Goku series, um, I was like, okay, forget it.
Hmm.
I'm gonna get my ass handed right here, right now. And it's like we always had that complaint that you always said that I'm never good at melee, and it's like how the hell do these people dominate with melee so well? And it's like I tried to, I remember when you were training me
Hmm.
when we went to the AI rooms and you were trying out our suits and you were showing me, okay, you do this, and you do that, and you try it and you do it all the time. And it's like,
Hmm.
and I couldn't do it. It's like that's why I always favored range weaponry, and even though I knew that some idiot is gonna close the distance and say hi. Let me introduce you to this sword.
Yeah, that is, and this was it was after G Generation I had the realization, but it took time for that to build up. It wasn't because of G Generation. It just so happened after G Generation I realized that I wasn't good with melee, and that might actually have come from the days when I was playing X Steel back in 2005, 2004ish, which was also another melee dominated thing, except they had spears and
The problem,
swords and shotguns and shields, and it was much more. They were a little bit more tactically involved as opposed to SDGO, where it's all about the blitz.
okay.
Um,
Here's the thing, though. It's with Gundam, even though beam weaponry and range weaponry were powerful, it always ended in a melee. Always ended with a melee.
if I had one strong complaint about the series finale of Double O, spoiler alert, it would be that Setsuna's and Ribbons Allmark's fight, their duel of the fates, if you will, ended in a melee fight. It ended, gosh darn it, it ended with Exia at one end of a sword and O Gundam ACD at the end of the other sword. And it stood there, and they posed, and they did their great little tip of the hat to Amuro Ray holding his, with the original Gundam holding its sword. That's all well and good, but it ended in a melee fight.
Hmm.
It always came down to, now that might be just Japanese culture, fair enough, but Double O up to that point had been pretty well balanced in terms of how how combat was portrayed. Exi was the melee unit. Setsuna FCA is going to be, he's going to be the hero of the show. Okay, whatever. Oh, guess what? It's going to end in a melee fight. Who could have guessed that one? So, and the reason it, yeah, I realized early on, or I realized in kind of mid to late 2013 that when somebody gets to me with melee, I might as well not even bother trying. Excuse me. It was like there's nothing you can do about it at that point. There's nothing that AV Unit 4A can do about it at that point. And I also have technical issues which I was never able to solve. And with only 3 days, 4 days left before the game closes, I was never able to successfully melee in this game. Never. At least not to the degree that the average person could, just because there were server issues, and I think there were some issues with my internet connection. It was a combination of things. But I was good at support, at long range support. I knew when to pull the trigger. I'm a tactical player.
Right.
I
That's that was one thing I always didn't like about certain Gundam games. They had strategy, they had tactics. This one didn't. Of course, you had to have an understanding of tactics. Henceforth, rock paper scissors. You pretty much knew if you're one of them, you know that there's a unit out there that says, "Oh, I can take it. I can take that on. That unit, I can kind of take that on. That unit is going to give me problems." And
mhm.
that's where teams, came out of nowhere and said, "Oh, you need this and that. I need you to handle that guy because your unit will be able to take it on."
Right,
But
right.
again, the things have changed, and whether it was good, whether it was bad, it was the only Gundam game out there here in the States that really, really mattered. Yes, there are other Gundam games that we can probably play on PlayStation 3, Xbox, or whatever. You can pretty much get yourself an import and play it here, but something that brought a lot of people into the game. SDGO was pretty much the game,
Yeah, it was a
and
mech game, and
now
it was before Hawken. It was before what's that one? Not Warhammer. War. I can't think. Warfighter or whatever it's called.
Warframe.
Warframe. Thank you. Yeah, it was before that. It was after. I remember a lot of X-Steel players coming to SDGO because it was mech combat. It was mecha combat, giant robot combat.
Oh, and let's not forget. I remember that there were so many sessions running. Like for the past 3, 4 years, I used to remember the sessions were like about 2 to 3 pages worth, and of whether it's deathmatch, whether it was normal mode, whether it was a grid. There were many matches, and now we're down to this. And I think,
Well,
in all fairness, for the past few months, I think we only saw was one page.
yeah,
Maybe 10
yeah.
server, maybe 10 matches, maybe 11 matches. On a rare occasion, it goes up to 2 pages because of the events.
hmm
But then again, it just people lost interest, and you
I
feel
don't.
sad.
Part of it was not just. I think one part of it was there wasn't engaging content. It's a collection game. You're supposed to like the Gundams enough that you collect them, and then they have their particular. The second thing was paper rock scissors, keeping the game in balance. When people discovered that melee was dominating all, if they didn't like melee, or if they couldn't customize the unit the way they wanted to, that would
Hmm.
also be a negative thing. I think the third thing that cursed the North, this is North America specifically, okay? The third thing that cursed North America was the player base. And it was the players at the top. I think OG Planet, I can't even come up with four-letter words strong enough to convey how much I hate what they did to the player base. They ran a game, and there are trolls and very,
Hmm.
very spiteful, dominating assholes sitting in the top lists of player bases of the list of the dominating players at the top. I'd say 1 out of every 10 of those top ranked players were genuinely nice people who were willing to give you the time of day. All the rest of them were assholes. All the rest of them were ha ha GG 360 no scope get good and all
Inter-
those things.
Internet had its fair share of trolls.
Any game has its fair share of trolls, fair enough, but OG Planet did nothing to regulate them. There are trolls I've had to deal with for going on 3.5 years now who are still in the forums today, right now, sitting there trying their best to shut down what's left of the player base. It's trying to be nostalgic. It's trying to be courteous to the game. They never got control of it. And part of that was they had GMs, game managers, or forum mothers, or whatever, who didn't know how to deal with it, or they were so strangled by the options they had from OG Planet that they couldn't do anything about it. As long as it wasn't a flame war, as long as there weren't threats being thrown around, you could say and do anything.
So now, let's now end this here with the one final thought. We all saw the possibility of of a successor for this. We all remember seeing about a few months ago,
hmm
the that updated SD game, SD
SD
Gundam game.
Gundam Next Evolution, which is being developed by a Japanese company. It's not
Right.
Korea-based, it's Japanese-based.
Right. Well, it should be like something that would probably be a successful successor to this game, whether it was from Korea or not. What would you think? Would they continue on making it, and then hopefully we'll see NCSoft or maybe some other company pick it up and bring it here to the States?
Uh,
Or will we be like waiting forever and ever, like with SDGO, until it finally reached here? Because I remember it took forever for this game to come out, and when it
it
came
took
out,
3 years. It came
yeah.
out, well, no, it came out in 2000. It started in Korea in 2007, same year that Double O came out, by the way, or started. And then it came to North America in late 2011, so it was actually 3.5, 4 years, depending how you look at it.
Hmm.
Um, right off the bat, I'm going to say I'm going to agree to disagree. Next Evolution is not a successor to SDGO. It carries it's not Capsule Fighter Online. It's a different brand of game. It's
Right. Well,
it is a third person shooter,
maybe
but
I said it incorrectly as in successor, but I'm saying like in the term of filling the void of Gundam games, because we don't have that much here in the States.
there's an or there's a smartphone game out that I'd love to play, but
Oh yes.
I don't have a smartphone, so I'm choosing not
Well,
to comment on that. So I can't.
don't even look at that because that
Yeah.
one is not even here in the States.
Right, right. Do I think Next Evolution will come to the States? It might. Unless Bandai's foolish and they don't look at the numbers that OG Planet gives them or doesn't, or they don't look at the fact that there's a surprisingly passionate player base here, whether it's filled with trolls or not, is irrelevant. The numbers are there to support it. This game was here for 3.5 years. It's hard to ignore that. And they also know that there are Gunpla fans in the United States, in Canada, can I say
Yeah,
Mexico, in Great Britain even. So
yeah.
the possibility is there, but I don't want to crush anybody's hopes by saying no, definitely not. It will not come over because it's not an American property. Um, I think if Bandai of Japan plays it smart, they could bring it over, and I think it would work.
Hmm.
I'll be honest. There are two things that kept me playing SDGO. One, it was SD Gundam. So the brand kept me coming back. If these have been pretty females with never their armor and very very flashy special attacks, and if it had been that, I wouldn't have given it a second look because there are a lot of games out there that are just like that. Warframe or whatever is one of them. I'm not going to play that. The other thing that kept me coming back to SDGO, and this is just my personal experience, was Clan Okami. Being around people who already knew the topic, not learning about the game as it goes, but there was a community already established. I would not have had the relationship with SDGO that I had if it hadn't been for the fact that I was able to talk to you and to Prime 92 and to Maxilla and to Cool Kid 9514 and to Gokai Change, Captain Chaos, Pale Shadow, all of them were Gundam fans, and they already knew the material to varying degrees. And myself, when I started playing SDGO, and this will lead me back to Next Evolution. When I started playing SDGO, I was all by myself. It wasn't until about 2 weeks after I joined that I found out Clan Okami had a presence here, and I immediately submitted approval for joining the clan, and I was accepted that day. And
Right.
so I was very very fortunate to have Clan Okami's backing the entire time. Eventually got to the point where I became Clan Master, a title that I like to think I didn't take too much advantage of every now and then. I might have put down arguments once in a while, but that was about the extent of what I did. I was much more. I was a very tame clan master. I'll be honest. I apologize for not being more assertive and being an asshole about it.
Oh,
But the camaraderie and knowing other people knowing about Gundam. I mean, my God, we don't just talk about Gundam here. We also talk about Super Sentai. We talk about Transformers. We talk about Star Wars. We talk about Legos. We talk about Kamen Rider. We talk about ponies. No, we don't talk about ponies. We talk about the death of ponies. That's what we do. We talk about a whole bunch of things. So there for me, there was a really, really good community, and by community, Clan Okami, that was established here, and people were trading that information. My God, how many hours, how many hundreds of hours do we spend looking at the SDGO wiki? And my knowledge, Strider, of Gundam has just gone through the roof compared to what it was in 2011. regarding Gundam. I've learned so many things about this franchise that I never would have known if I'd just been all by myself. Watching Gundam 00, which was my first Gundam series, I would not have known all those things if it hadn't been for this community.
Right.
Which brings me back to Next Evolution. Because it is a different kind of game, I think there will be organism. I think there will be something like Clan Okami that maybe not in name. Well, maybe in name. There are a couple of Okamis who have confirmed they will go to Next Evolution. I will not be among them because I don't believe Next Evolution is the kind of game that I'm looking for. Yes, it is SD Gundam. Yes, it will have that same community, but it's not going to have the game, the mechanics or the play style that I'm interested in. Is not appealing to me as a gamer. It's not interesting for me. The only thing that would drag me in there is A, Okami, B, SD Gundam, and C, if it was a little more like that. So I got a little distracted. Do I think Next Evolution will come to North America? I hope it does. I really do. I would encourage that it comes over. Even if I don't like that type of game, I think it does have a place over here. Hmm? Oh, shit, Strider. Okay. It just, how long have we been doing this? Oh my god. It just occurred to me. Let me look. Because I've been talking. I'm completely distracted right now. How long? 49 gig. Holy shit. Might have been well over an hour. This is totally not what I was thinking of doing with you tonight, Strider. We were supposed to review SMS ranks. We weren't supposed to get into this conversation. I ended up doing it anyways. It is kind of a good thing though. He's AFK actually right now. He just sent me a note on Skype. Um, I wasn't actually planning on doing this. I was actually planning on doing this separately, but I'm kind of glad that this Strider had me go on and on about this because I've actually been meaning to say a lot of these things about balance and about. I'm getting hoarse. I saw your message, Strider. Um, I was just going to close this up by saying we've been. This is not at all what I was planning on doing, but I've been meaning to have this conversation recorded because I've been venting about it for two and a
That's all
half
right.
years. But I also wanted to do a conclusion,
Okay.
my
All right.
thoughts
Well,
on.
Ava. So I'm sorry. I gotta go.
Yeah, I know you do. Um, Obviously, we didn't get to do what I thought we were going to do today. This kind of blossomed into its own thing.
Then let's
Um,
try it tomorrow, and hopefully we'll concentrate on that. We'll put some bullet points,
right.
and we'll straight on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta go. So have a good night.
All right. Yeah. You too.
Take care.
Yep. And there he goes. Whew. I'm getting hoarse. the Do I think I think it would be foolish of Bandai Japan to not bring Next Evolution over here. SDGNE, I think is what the abbreviations, or SDGN, I suppose. I think it would be foolish of them not to bring Next Evolution over here. Am I going to be part of it? No. Is everybody who is playing SDGO going to migrate over there? Probably not. A lot of them probably have similar thoughts to me. The play style is not something of interest. And I've got my hesitations. Did Softmax pull this game off? They did an amazing job. Congratulations, Softmax. Without sarcasm and being straight-faced and sincere, heart on my sleeve thing, you pulled it off, Softmax. You pulled off a crossover game unlike anything I've seen before. Obviously, my examples are limited, but from what I've seen, you pulled it off. You took hundreds, dare I say 1,000? You took hundreds of mobile suits and mobile armors, and you put them into parameters and terms that would be cross-compatible with all of them. A beam rifle's a beam rifle's a beam rifle. Dumbfire is dumbfire is dumbfire. I might not have agreed with all decisions of which mobile suits did what, And I also don't think the transition was perfect, but goddamn, Softmax, you did an amazing job with this game. Or at least the idea behind it was solid enough. I think where it ended up is something entirely different. I think where it ended up was a bit more of a mess, and as I've said a couple of times now at this point, not just in other videos but here, uh, I think that a small vocal minority from outside of Gundam who didn't understand what Gundam was came in and tried to make it moderate, or they tried to customize it for their own good, and I think that was actually a bad business model to follow. I don't know business, I don't know online gaming, but SD Gundam as a franchise, as a property, was working when this game started. It did what I wanted it to do. Mobile armors were big dominating monsters. They didn't one-hit kill. I think there are very few units that could get even close to one-hit kill, and I'm glad there's no such thing as a one-hit kill, because that would be really frustrating. But if you could take a C-rank unit and dominate an S-rank unit, that was a good balance. Even if, with enough personal skill, you could pull it off. When it gets to the points of checks and balances, SDGO started in the right place. I think where it faltered the most was G Generation, which let's be honest, yeah, I can't say that, was beyond the halfway point, because SDGO has been running since 2007 in Korea. It ended in 2015. That's an 8-year run, or 7.5. That's an 8-year run. G Generation popped up in only the last 2. So I don't know if it's Korean players. I don't know if it was Korean players who suggested the heavy rebalance, or rather that became known as G Generation. I'm not sure if it was them or if Softmax was looking at other games and saying, oh, we should model our current game after them, and they transitioned over to that. I'm not certain which way it goes. But I do know my computer's starting to chug, so I guess it's protesting a bit about the runtime of this video. But I do know Softmax did a wonderful thing. Team Trinity, which is the development group, which is the group of people who came up with the concept of the game, I think they did a wonderful job. Um, it was nowhere. It was not perfect, but it was amazing. I really need to turn this off. I'm down to 3 and 4 frames a second here. This is not at all what I was planning on doing. I was actually going to record just like a couple of minutes of this, and then we were going to start off, but it was such a good conversation, such as it is with Stryderprime. Okay. Double Quanta, Full Saver is kind of an ultimate expression of what could have been and what ultimately wasn't. That's kind of poetic and kind of awkward at the same time. This is AV Unit 4A. Thanks for tuning in.